Welcome to Fanatics Gym. My name is Jake and I am your host here for today's exercise. And today's exercise is the back squat. Very different variations of the back squat, as you may know. You may like a particular way, that's cool. I particularly do mine in a certain way. I've been doing it for years, so let's get at it. Actually throw some weight on the bar because I don't have anything on it right now. Actually, while I'm doing this, a little interesting info about the back squat, a little kind of interesting history. It started, probably the Greeks probably started it actually, but the first person to do it for health purposes was actually a gentleman that was hired by the Prussian military. And what he would do is he'd train all the military soldiers and they'd just do air squats. They would just do air squats just like that. And that was the first actual time in history where they recorded it for, or rather they did it for health purposes. And then of course, throughout time it evolved. People started doing it with dumbbells, mostly holding. Some even did it like this. And then when the barbell started to come out, which was, I believe, around the 1900s, the turn of the century. People started to do more weight, but what they would actually do is, let me get another bar here. Let's get this cone bar. So they stand it on the side. So if the ground was right here, they'd stand it on the side, they'd tip it up on the 10, they'd get under it, boom. And they just do it like that. And that's how they would get their weight on. Two particular gentlemen started to do that, and someone marketing it in the magazines that they were sponsored by. And it was like bodybuilding magazines, stuff like that. Blanking on their names, but that's how it kind of became mainstream. So after it became mainstream, naturally people started to push the limits. And then one thing led to another. Bar racks came into being, and then people really started to pack on the weight. And it wasn't until fairly recently, I believe it was somewhere in the 1980s, that a gentleman by the name of Lee Moran did the first 1,000-pound squat. I actually think it was like 1,003 pounds. Feel free to fact check me on that, but it was around that time where that happened. And ever since then, people started to push the limits even more, and now here we are today. So anyways, let's get to it. Now there's a few different ways that people do the back squat. Whichever way you choose is perfectly okay with me, as long as you like doing it, works for you. The way I typically like to do it is first I obviously get my hands ready. I put my ring fingers on the ring marks. Sometimes I'll do the middle fingers depending. And then I look at the little grooves, the little tread marks in the middle right here. And I put that actually just above my shoulder blades. And I do that because I feel that it actually centers the weight more over my hips, and that's how I do it. Actually, let me come up to the camera and demonstrate with you with the curl bar. Hopefully you can see it like this. So if I turn around this way, the bar actually sits, I'm not sure if you can see that. So if my shoulder blades are about an inch down, that's where they sit. So from a side angle, that's kind of what it looks like. Let me see if I can flip it this way. Sometimes it feels like it's falling off, but that hasn't happened to me yet, and I've been doing it for actually fairly recently. I've only been doing it for about like 2 or 3 years, but it works for me. All right, so I get my ring fingers, I put them on the rings. I look at the treading or the threading in the bar. I go under, boom. Put it just above my shoulder blades. Me particularly, I like my feet a little bit further than shoulder width apart. And then sometimes I'll spread my toes out really wide. But right now they're at about a little less than a 45-degree angle. Anyways, so I get the weight over my hips. Just come down, boom, come up. Again, inhale, and then I exhale. One more. Let me do it from this side. Same thing, ring finger on the rings. Look at the treading right here in the middle. Go down, boom. Just over my shoulder blades. Now, if you noticed, I was breaking 90 degrees. So I've actually been doing that for more than a decade. And again, that just works for me. That's how I was taught, and never had a problem with it. There's a lot of things out there, people saying that it damages your knees and you shouldn't do that, but I particularly never had a problem with it. But on the other side, I know people that have had a problem with it and they can't go past that. Now, as I mentioned before, there's a couple other different variations on how you can do this. As you notice, my feet were about shoulder width apart. Now we're gonna do one that's super wide, and then we're gonna do another one with, what do you call it? Your feet are close together. All right, for this one's gonna be the wide legs. On this one, I'm gonna try my middle finger on the rings. So to switch the grip up a little bit. Ow! Okay, my body doesn't bend like that. Let's do it the other way. I don't know if I like that one. I'm kind of hurt. I did feel in my glutes a lot. What I know from that exercise is the wider your feet are, and the wider your stance is, the more it works your glutes, and the more in your feet are, or legs are close together, it works your thighs. So speaking of that, let's do that one. That's pretty good. Other way. Woo! I actually like that one. I felt it a little in my lower back, a little more of a stretch, but it was kind of like a lower back stretch. That was actually the first time I did that. And if you noticed on the two, I couldn't really break 90 because it felt weird and uncomfortable. But hey, that's what we have these safety bars for. Make sure you have those, because one time when we were in high school, I think we were freshmen, my buddy, he was squatting like this, and they always told us, like, hey, if you fall, just let it fall because the racks are going to catch it. Well, most of us have never touched a weight before in our life, and I would imagine that's a pretty scary feeling, knowing that you're not going to be able to come back up and you're just going to fall forward. So naturally, you're going to try to catch yourself. So what he did was just that. He went to catch himself, boom, and the bar pinched the meat of his hand right here, or actually I think it was up here, and split him wide open. He had to go to the doctor, get stitches, but it was cool because it was like a smiley face, so he just walked around with 2 dots on his thumb, making everybody laugh. But that was a good time. That's today's episode. I'm gonna get some water, probably get a beer because it's hot. But hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you next time.
I'm going